Gold has reached a new all-time high, fueled by geopolitical tensions and investor focus on the Federal Reserve's next move. To unpack the latest, we're joined by Brad Garstworth from Unearthing Opportunities. Good to see you, my friend. Take us through a little bit about what's driving the latest surge.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much uncertainty right now, and clearly what's going on the tariff side, potential trade wars, is really giving this asset class a nice boost. Now, I like gold as a great, alternative investment. I think it's a must own for all portfolios, and I think we're still going to see it continue to make new highs. I don't think it's over quite yet.
Okay, so how are geopolitical tensions influencing gold prices at the moment? There's obviously a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, Mike, if you look at what's going on globally, it's one of the safest asset classes. It's a tangible good that's recognized all over the world. So, I mean, in terms of safety, gold is really the number one choice here.
Okay, so with the Fed's policy announcement coming up, how might that impact the momentum that we are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a good question here, Mike. I think right now, I think there's a lot of question marks on what will happen next with the Fed. I think ultimately, in the States, we're seeing higher prices. Inflation is certainly happening. And we're also getting some negative signals in the economic front with jobs numbers. So, will the Fed cut this next meeting? Will they take a pause and cut the next? I think a cut is likely in the next 2 or 3 meetings. I'm not sure if it's going to be this next one. Either way, I still see the safe haven of gold continue to perform quite well.
Okay, now something a bit different. Chinese automaker BYD has introduced a breakthrough battery system that could reshape the EV industry, dramatically reducing charge time. Brad, take us through a little bit about this new technology.
Yeah, so I mean, BYD is by far killing it in China. I mean, they're the reason why Tesla numbers in that region are down so much, and now they're saying that they're getting a 5 minute charge for 250 miles with their new charging system. This is incredible, and one of the biggest areas for people to pause on a purchase of an EV is really the charging side. Most people need to charge it overnight if it's not a level 2 charger, and this, a 5 minute charge, that's game changing. So
Yeah.
big announcement by them. We'll see how that happens. I mean, clearly, the one thing to mention, though, in the States, we'll never get a BYD product just because of tariffs. But outside, rest of the world and China, I mean, they're just absolutely killing it.
Yeah, we'll be driving high. Now, what kind of impact could this have on the global EV market, more broadly speaking, and of course, competitors such as Tesla?
Yeah, I think this is a negative for Tesla in the region, absolutely. And I think if you look at other Chinese manufacturers, there's been a whole bunch of EV manufacturers in China over the last 12 to 24 months that have really emerged. BYD is really one of the leaders. They have the most volume. But in terms of competitive landscape, I see this as a bigger hit here for Tesla. I mean, Tesla's been trying to do well in the region. And the Chinese EV makers are just offering more and priced less.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we've seen Tesla take a bit of a hit recently. Anything to remark on when it comes to Elon Musk and Trump's relationship and the fall of Tesla's share price?
Yeah, I don't think it's any politically driven, decline. I really think on the tariff front, I think you might see more tariffs going to hit. Which we've heard on, certainly more tariffs going from back and forth from both countries. But ultimately, it's coming down to demand, and the demand in that region is down dramatically. So I think that's taking a hit at it. And then also here domestically, there's also an issue with demand because you got the incumbents like BMWs, et cetera, that are really coming in with pretty good EVs that are quite competitive against a Tesla. That's also hurting demand for the company.
Yeah, and finally, Brad, Alphabet is set to acquire Israeli cybersecurity startup Wiz for $32 billion, marking its biggest acquisition ever. An interesting time to do so.
Yeah, Mike. I mean, this is an acquisition they tried to get done a year ago, and actually the price tag, it was almost 12 months ago, was around 23 billion. So now they're offering about 9 billion more, but it looks like the deal is going to get done. Now it goes up to regulatory approval. I think last time around there was concerns that it would get blocked. With the new administration, there might be a little bit more of an ease on acquisition. And I think that's part of the reason why this deal did get done, at least initially through the companies. Again, now we have to wait regulatory and see what happens there. But I mean, this is a great asset for Google, and I think this is, from a price, I think it's not a terrible price they paid for something that's growing as fast as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know why Google is making such a massive investment in cybersecurity right now. It seems like an interesting time to do so, but also seems like an obvious question.
Yeah, I mean, look, cybersecurity, Mike, is going to continue to do quite well. It's one of the sectors over the next several decades that will continue to grow because you're going to have, constant threats that are coming, through internet and online sources. And then if you look at what's going on with their product, I mean, it's AI-driven cybersecurity. So, you're in the next, frontier on both sides. And the company has really A-list clients growing incredibly fast. And I mean, that is really the reason why the company wanted to acquire them. It gets them into a hot market. Again, now the question will become, is this going to grow into, $100 billion type business in the next 5+ years? And is this going to be another reason why government might want to break up companies that get so large? So a lot of question marks on the regulatory front, but I think it is a very positive acquisition for the company.
Yeah, interesting. So Wiz already works with Microsoft and Amazon, of course, but how does this deal impact the competitive cloud security landscape beyond what we sort of touched on so far?
Yeah, and I mean, a great question, Mike. I think the one thing to think about is when you look at the competitive landscape, now you have $1 trillion company essentially backing them. So, that certainly helps the trajectory growth going forward as you have this behemoth as your parent. So I think that's really the most important aspect here. And, what can they spend to acquire growth? Now their purse is quite large. So I think that's really going to impact the competitive landscape. I think you still certainly have players. They were doing a great job on the leaderboard from a private company standpoint. But I think they're going to be a force to reckon with now with Google as its parent.
Brad, there was a previous bid which fell through due to antitrust concerns. What's different this time?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier there, Mike, I think because of the Trump administration, I think they're going to have a little bit more of an ease on acquisition. So I think ultimately the timing makes more sense now because the old administration probably would have blocked it. This administration is more pro acquisition. So I think it likely probably gets done. I think there was probably a lot of information done and research on seeing if it would get done before the bid. Clearly, it probably passed that sniff test, and I think that again, I think with the new administration, there's a much better chance of this for this to go through, and that's probably why they went ahead and went through this.
Absolutely, there's that business-minded US president we now have at play. But Brad, thank you again, as always, for speaking to us. Look forward to chatting again very soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike.